Welcome back, everyone. So, classic, gotta get the volume first. So, I talked recently about some of the other competitive formats in TF2, and I kind of focused on not the sixes replacements. I don't think that's a, helpful way of putting it, but kind of just competitive formats where the main conceit is it is resembling kind of a competitive way to play just the base of TF2, right? That is what Sixes is, that is what Highlander is, and that is what Pearlander is. They all have different decisions being made about the format to encourage certain kinds of gameplay. So as a result, you have kind of a variety, I suppose, of different gameplay across the three. That being said, some formats I would consider competitive in the sense that, every player in the server is communicating and trying to win. Although, of course, with any format, how serious you take it is kind of up to you. But the point being, everyone's trying to win. People are communicating and trying to achieve their goals and objectives. And there's a lot of competitive formats that are much more extreme in the kind of gameplay they are trying to create, to the point where I don't think you would consider it to be kind of an analog for the game at large, just played competitively. I think it would be more... Let me get this demo playback thing out of the way. It's a little more specific. That doesn't mean they aren't fun, and that doesn't mean you can't get really good at them and have a lot of enjoyment playing them. But they are definitely usually more niche and smaller in scope. So that being said, let's get into it. And I think what should be a good one to start with? We can ease into it with something I kind of offhandedly mentioned in the comment on the previous format video, which was actually Pyro dodgeball is something that people do play and do take seriously. And it does use its own config and whatnot. I believe it actually uses like plugins to change the functionality of certain weapons. Not something I'm very familiar with, obviously, and is by far the most casual of these competitive formats that I can think of. But we can talk about it regardless. Very simple. You have a rocket going back and forth, and then you have two teams of pyros that are just playing to air blast it back and forth. And of course, each time you reflect it, the rocket gets a little bit faster, a little bit harder to reflect. And a lot of the metagame revolves around kind of giving difficult reflex for your opponents to hit, trying to get kills as a result. That can involve like having the rocket kind of orbit you to, vary your timing a little bit. Or I understand you can be reflecting it in different directions to kind of make the rocket go crazy, like bounce off the ground, zigzag, whatever. Make it difficult to reflect. I know Flare Gun has some unique applications as far as, I think it knocks back players or something to that effect. You don't have much ammo for it, so it's kind of a limited use resource. But yeah, it's basically just a deathmatch game where you're trying to be the last team standing, and you do so with reflecting these rockets. So it is cool how like a little bit of a niche metagame has evolved with Pyro dodgeball. Not something I've really played, but I have seen a little bit in like charity events and whatnot. And it's kind of cool how, with really anything in TF2, you can establish a rule set and play it enough, and then soon like meta game starts to evolve. I think that's interesting. That being said, let's hop into... Let's talk about Ulti Duo next. So Ulti Duo is something you can play in a league, but it's more of the playtime is kind of just hanging out with friends. Very easy to play because it only requires 4 people total, and it is very simple. It is just medic and a soldier versus a medic and a soldier on usually a very, very small Koth map. So yeah, it's basically, it's still Koth, so name of the game is just ticking down that timer. However, a lot of it just revolves to having your soldier beat the other soldier in a fight, basically, so you get to cap. A big thing in Ulti Duo is managing kind of your spawn times, because of course if, you know, for example, your soldier dies and you're a medic, it's usually optimal to kill bind so that you get to spawn with them, because otherwise the other team can kind of kill you whenever they want. And you know, if you are then on a very late spawn and your soldier spawns and you are now dead, then suddenly, you know, the other team just won a lot more time than they would have otherwise if you guys both spawn at the same time and could take the next fight, right? So Ulti Duo is a very old and very classic game mode people play. Not really my cup of tea, just because I don't know, it's extremely DM oriented, which is an attractive factor for people. And it does actually, so something else I should commend it for is it makes Medic really interesting to play. Ulti Duo Medic is one of the more interesting ways to play Medic, just because you are half of the team and you are some of the team's combat capabilities. Also the fact that a Medic can just carry a fight by bowing their soldier more than the other med. So you have a lot more agency in that format as a Medic, which is nice. Yeah, very, very simple, very straightforward. It's mostly just a DM fest between the soldiers with the medic support. And yeah, a lot of people enjoy playing it. So a proposed alternative to Ulti Duo is actually Ulti Trio, which, as you would expect, instead of teams of 2, it's teams of 3, so 6 players total. And what Ulti Trio is different with is that that third player is a scout. So Ulti Trio, I have even less of an idea of the kind of meta game than I would for Ulti Duo. But yeah, it introduces a scout to the game mode, and of course scouts are very good at cleaning up kills and just getting reliable damage. That being said, in Ulti Duo, it's usually soldiers run shotguns, so there is some of that element anyway of that kind of hit scan cleanup. But yeah, it's a third person, and I suppose that introduces some things like medic scout speed you can have, and also just more decisions about who to heal when, because of course there's 2 players to heal as a medic rather than you can just focus your efforts on one. But usually Ulti Trio, you have larger sized maps, still going to be Koth, but yeah, just a slightly different take on the format. While we're taking up the team sizes, we may as well talk about fours next. And fours is an interesting game mode, and arguably actually a kind of, again, poor phrasing with the sixes replacement, but still kind of aiming to just be a distillment of the game at large rather than a very specialized format. And fours is kind of just what it sounds like. It's just 4v4, and it's just one of every combat class: medic, scout, demo, and soldier. And I believe fours is typically played on Koth maps as well. And again, much smaller map size with fours. And yeah, again, I've played some fours in like my TF2 infancy, to be fair, but I have very little idea about how the meta works. I'd imagine it'd be somewhat similar to sixes, just in how the classes operate, because of course that's kind of how the classes tend to shine. But of course you're not going to have like a combo flank distinction. It is going to be more, I guess, just team fight oriented, of course. And something like a number advantage is going to matter a lot more because there's only 4 players per team. So yeah, that's fours. Interesting game mode. I think there are fours leagues. Not in RGL at the moment, but that is something you can play if you're interested. Next, a big thing I wanted to talk about is Pastime. And Pastime is quite interesting because it is a completely different style of game than anything else I've really talked about. Maybe comparable to like Pyro dodgeball. But something like Ulti Duo, Ulti Trio, and fours are on their face quite straightforward because they are just, you know, generally a Koth game. You are playing a standard TF2 game mode with standard classes. Of course, these classes are restricted to just be these or those or what have you. In the case of Ulti Duo, it's restricted to just playing a soldier and a medic. Ulti Trio, of course, you have the 3, 4s, you just have the 4. And Pastime is completely different, because with Pastime, you're just playing a completely different game mode with a completely different objective, and it leads to some really interesting gameplay. So for starters, Pastime, of course, you are playing the in-game Pastime mode, which is closer to, I'd say, like a sport kind of game than TF2, in the sense that you are playing around a ball that you hold and throw, and you're trying to score this ball. Although I suppose they call it a jack, not a ball. But anyway, yeah, so Pastime, the way it has kind of evolved is to be almost like the jumpers game mode. A lot of the time, jumpers enjoy this game mode because it definitely prioritizes movement, and there's a lot to talk about with Pastime. So for starters, I guess the baseline stuff. The 3 allowed classes, I believe, are Soldier, Medic, and Demo. I don't think there's any other classes you can play. And curiously enough, actually, it is the only game mode I know of where stickies are banned. So to play Demo, you have to play Demo Knight, just because stickies are broken for the format. And I don't think that Medic is restricted to 1, because Ubers are really not that centralizing in this game mode, compared to pretty much any other game mode that Medics are in. So with that in mind, you have, in addition to that, entire maps, and basically everything is, of course, community made, but they make their own maps to play this. It is a 4v4 format, so the class lineup is kind of I could ask some Pastime guys. I'm not sure about if there's a standard meta or not that has formed, but you do see really any of the classes you play, because of course medics are useful for healing people, and I do believe they have a unique ability in holding the jack. I don't remember if it is, I think it's demos that have a further throw. I forget what's unique about medic, but yeah, of course you can heal people, which is useful to have because health packs tend to be pretty sparse on these maps that they make. Soldier, of course, is kind of just a standard class, extremely versatile in rocket jumping, and just very easy to get around and just be a very helpful class. So Soldier is, I would assume, is kind of just the standard class. But Demo, of course, there are Trimp setups, there are Trimp ramps intentionally placed on these maps. And again, you can, I believe, throw the jack further as a Demo. In addition to the fact that if you melee someone who has the jack, you instantly pick it up. So that's obviously a useful thing to have, and gives Demo Knight a little bit more utility in the format. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting kind of gameplay that you see, as far as, you know, trying to intercept people trying to score by, you know, defending your goal and kind of jumping in front of it. Of course, as a demo, that's something you can only do temporarily, because you only have the 1 charge, and, you know, as a soldier you only have so much health. So there is, of course, decisions to be made about when to actually throw for the goal or not, based on you know, when you expect the defenders to be there and whatnot. A lot of really cool jump tech with passes, because of course when you lock onto someone and pass to them, the jack kind of follows them. So you can do all sorts of crazy things with, like, ramp slide sync setups to score. Something you'll see actually is a player will have the jack locked onto them. They will go towards the goal, and since it's too slow to pick it up and throw it, they will actually kill bind in front of the goal, so that the jack that was homing into them just immediately gets scored, which is quite interesting. And you can, I mean, it gets really deep. Like, you will see crazy clips from, like, Tomato Tom or something, of, you know, pogoing off the jack that's, like, homing into them, and you can jump off of it to get enough momentum while still being kind of in the lock-in or lock-on range. And you literally are just kind of flying by pogoing off this thing. It's like homing towards you closer and closer. So there's a lot of really, really cool tech that you can do in Pastime. And yeah, it's a cool game mode. Something that is kind of getting more... I would say it's popping off a bit. It's definitely seen some representation in RGL Cups and a lot of stream coverage as a result, because it is a very interesting alternative game mode. Obviously, far less comparable to something like Sixes or Highlander, where you're still just kind of seeing all the classes, but in, you know, maybe restricted game modes or class limits or weapon restrictions, but still ultimately like very fundamentally similar to the base game. Pastime kind of turns everything on its head, and you see some really interesting game mode or game play as a result, because of course, again, TF2 is a very movement oriented game mode, and Pastime definitely leans into that. Was there anything else that I had in mind? We talked about Ulti Duo, Ulti Trio, we talked about Force, Pastime, even Pyro, dodgeball. Oh yes, last thing is Bball. So Bball is again a pretty casual, it's easy to play at a casual capacity, just having fun, but you can get very in depth with it. But Bball's very simple. It's just 2 teams of 2 soldiers on a small basketball court. And rather than Pastime, you pick up and manually hold a ball, and you can't shoot while you're holding it. And also with the Jack, while you're holding it, you take mini crits as well, so you're quite vulnerable. But instead of all that, you rather just hold an intelligence briefcase, so you still have all the same abilities to jump around, that is rocket jump around, and you know, do all the things that a soldier does while you have it, but you're holding the intelligence instead, and you need to manually stand in the rim of the hoop to score. So Bball is actually where you see a lot of really strong soldiers get their start. I know Soapy Meister was a huge Bball player back in the day, and you do see a lot of really talented soldiers come out of this game mode, because it does kind of highlight a lot of the skills of soldier, that being not only just DM and being able to, you know, outfight the opponents, but also jumping and rocket jumping with like a purpose in mind and an objective in mind, because it's not the same kind of thing as rocket jumping in, you know, a jump map or something, which of course I suppose there is an objective to complete the jump, what have you. But you are jumping against other people, right, who are trying to prevent you from doing one thing or the other. So it's not so simple as kind of just jumping to the hoop, but actually keeping in mind like where the other team is positioned and whatnot, and you know, trying to avoid getting air shot for that matter, in order to score. So Bball, again, very, very old. I remember watching some old streams of like Seagull playing Bball. I think that was for some event or something. But yeah, very old and a very classic staple of TF2, which I think is a good thing to end off here on. So for any of these game modes, feel free to check them. I know Pastime has its own Discord, and Ulti Duo has some leagues you can probably play. I think UGC is Ulti Duo. For the others, like just playing Bball or Pyro Dodgeball or something, it's usually just community servers. They might have Discord hubs or whatnot. But if you're in any of these communities and there's a particular link or Discord or what have you that people should check out to get started, then by all means, just leave that in the comments. But yeah, there's some interesting stuff out there as far as alternative game modes go for the more niche stuff, because again, TF2 is just such a interesting and also diverse game that you see all sorts of different kinds of gameplay and different formats and whatnot. And again, no, I'm not going to get on the Sixes soapbox about restrictions sometimes making the game better, although these are very restricted formats that do create... Oh, and here I just found a way to do it while saying I'm not doing it. So let's just go ahead and finish the thought. yeah, of course, all these game modes do have very restricted configurations and whatnot, to the point where the idea of even off-classing is just simply not a consideration. These are just the classes you will see 100% of the time. Otherwise, it's literally not even the format anymore. But you still get very interesting gameplay as a result that people can have a lot of fun with. So yeah, definitely check out some of these alternative game modes if you're interested. And if you're not interested and just kind of wanted to hear me talk, hopefully it was still an interesting topic to hear some of the other ways that people find to have fun in TF2. But anyway, that is all from me. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next time.